The Montreal Titanic Walking Tour with author Alan Hustak.
Montreal may not be the first city that you think about when you think of Titanic, but in 1912, there were 30 people aboard the ship bound for what was then Canada's largest city. Many of their stories have never been told, but if you follow me on a walking tour, I'll give you a glimpse of some of their fascinating lives. Any story of the sinking of the Titanic has to begin here in Montreal at the headquarters of the Allen Shipping Company. In 1912, the Allen liners were Montreal-based commercial ships, and one of them, the Virginian, was bound for Europe with a crate load of apples. It picked up signals in the middle of the Atlantic that a vessel called Titanic on her maiden voyage was sinking. It needed permission to go to Titanic's aid, so it wired head office here in Montreal for permission. Permission was given, and with that, the world began to hear the story of the sinking of the Titanic unfold. Probably the richest Canadian aboard Titanic was a man called Harry Markland Molson. Now, don't confuse him with the Molson beer family. Harry was a banker, and this was his bank. Although I don't suspect he did very much banking because he was a bit of a playboy. The wonderful thing about him is that he had already survived the sinking of 2 other ships. He had been in 2 shipwrecks, and he had swum away from both of them. Aboard the Titanic, he saw a ship on the horizon, and he took off his shoes and socks and told friends that he was going to swim to the ship that he saw on the horizon. And that's the last we heard of Harry Markland Molson. If you're looking for a real authentic love story about Titanic, forget about Jack and Rose. I'm going to tell you about Quig Baxter, a 24-year-old hockey player from Montreal who lived in this house in the Square Mile. He was traveling aboard Titanic with his mother and his sister. They had been in Europe. While they'd been in Europe, Quig had met a cabaret singer by the name of Bertha Maney, and he was bringing her back, but he didn't tell his mom and sister that she was aboard the ship. And the first that they found out that his girlfriend was aboard the ship was when the ship was sinking, and he took his girlfriend to the lifeboat and asked his mom and his sister to look after her. Most of the victims of the Titanic that were recovered from the ocean are buried in Halifax, but there are about 10 here in Montreal, either graves or memorials to Titanic's passengers, including our friend Quig Baxter. He's not buried here, his body was never recovered, but there is a memorial to him. But his mother, Madame Chaput Baxter, who died in 1923, is here in Notre-Dame-de-Neige Cemetery. In the Protestant cemetery across the way, you will find memorials to other Titanic passengers, including our friend Mr. Molson. Those are just some of the highlights of Montreal's Titanic. There are many, many, many more stories, and if you want to discover Montreal's Titanic for yourself, why don't you come up for a visit?